I'll be providing, I will be supporting my colleague Lachko on this call. This webinar is going to be about Tangerine updates and featured demo. We will be talking about new features of the Tangerine updates, a couple of projects where some of these features have been used on. And we'll also be talking about the new Tangerine Moodle course that allows you to learn more about these updates and also try them out. And to start, I will give a little overview about Tangerine and the journey so far. And then I'll hand it over to my colleague Lachko to continue with the main presentation and the main reason we're here. I will be monitoring the chat box and I will be giving feedback and also be liaising with my colleague Lasco to attend to any of the questions you might have, or at any point in time, if you wish to raise your hand and ask a question, please feel free to do so. All right. Tangerine, as you know, it is an open source software. It's also very important for us to highlight that even as an open source software, it also has the subscription service, which is actually made for hosting. Tangerine is designed for Android mobile device. Its primary use is to enable capture of students' responses in oral reading and mathematics skill assessment, as well as interview responses in field observation. Using Tangerine improves quality, especially around data, and the efficiency of data collection and analysis. The software simplifies the preparation and implementation of field work, reduces student assessment times, reduces measurement and data entry errors, and eliminates annual data entry from paper forms. Tangerine is optimized for offline data collection in low bandwidth environment and features powerful sync and data backup options. A little brief history about Tangerine. Tangerine was developed by RTI International starting in 2011 with RTI's own internal research funds. RTI redesigned Tangerine and developed a new code base using latest technology in 2017/2018 with funding support from google.org. Tangerine, as you know, it is available to the public through an open source GNU general public license. You can host it on your own servers and modify its code base as needed. The only requirement is that if you share your, it's majorly for you to share your modified version publicly. You also need to share the modified source code with the larger Tangerine community so people can also see the various use cases of Tangerine. Since 2011, Tangerine has been used by over 60 organizations in over 70 countries and in over 100 languages. While originally developed for education, Tangerine is increasingly used also for interviews, field observation in health, governance, agriculture sectors, and it's also packed with a lot of features as we are going to learn today. For today's presentation, I will be handing it over to my colleague, Lachko, as I mentioned earlier, and he's going to take us through the key agenda points and also take us through this presentation. Please feel free to type in any Q&A section questions you have in the chat box, and I'll be willing to call Lachko's attention or respond to some of the questions you might have. Thank you very much, and I'll hand it over to Lachko now.
Thanks, Tony. Thank you for the introduction. I just got a message that the chat feature is actually disabled. I don't think the organizers of the webinar remember to make me an admin for the call, so I can actually not enable this feature. Please use the Q&A section to create, to post your questions, or use the raise hand feature. And if you don't mind speaking, I see that I have the option to allow people to talk. Just keep in mind this call is being recorded, and one of the two sessions, whichever one we decide is better, will be shared on with all participants and uploaded to the YouTube channel. Just a very brief introduction before I start. My name is Lachko Christoph. I think I know all of you, or the names I recognize. I think all of the names here, you know me from the support desk, or you have me on Skype. I work with the development team, but I also provide support for Tangerine, both for external and internal users. Just something to reiterate that Tony mentioned already is that Tangerine is open source, and our subscription service is to cover the costs for hosting and for providing the support desk. We do support a few organizations in their own installations, and if this is an option you would like to explore, please just contact us, and we'll be happy to guide you through the process. I will start my screen share now, and we will begin with the presentation. What's the agenda for today? We will look at our new Moodle courses. All of you will receive a copy of this presentation, so don't worry about writing down the URLs. We'll see the Moodle courses and what they offer. I'll walk you through some updates on work that RTI is doing and maybe interesting and applicable in your use cases of Tangerine. We'll look at some integrations that we have done internally, but also they can be applied for external clients as well. And we'll walk through the feature updates that you may have seen already in the link that came with the invitation for the webinar. Moodle courses. We spent some time in converting, or not converting, in creating two new courses. One is the Quick Start Guide, and the other one is the Data Collector Guide. Both of those, as the name suggests, are with different audiences. The idea is that before you sit one-on-one with someone to teach them how to use Tangerine or how to actually do digitalization or rendering of their instruments, you can send them to the Quick Start Guide, where they can get the basics of how everything works, so that you can only do a one-on-one session for more specific things for your use case. The Data Collector Guide is the guide for the tablet user, or for we started calling it device user because it can be a tablet, it can be the Chrome browser, so it's not necessarily a mobile device. This course is targeting the end user of the device and shows them how to do, how they can sync, how they can update, how to complete a form, how to get back to a form from the visits tab, etc. Things that I think all of you know already. What's interesting about the Quick Start Guide, the rendering guide, is that we have embedded, as you can see on the last screenshot, we have embedded the Tangerine interface inside the course. So you go through a very practical session where you're asked to do very specific things. You don't have to switch screens. You can do them right there inside the Moodle interface. You can review your work afterwards by clicking the preview and make sure that everything is done correctly. The course is also, every topic adds to the previous one. So even if you didn't complete something or something was not very clear in the previous topic, you will see the solution of it in the next one. The course is available publicly, or both courses are available publicly. For now, we have not made the sign up for those courses to be public, but if you send us an email, we'll be happy to create a user for you and assign you to that course. A little bit of an update, something that I think we don't speak enough about is Tangerine Teach. We are now on the route, or en route to be nationwide in 2 countries, in Bangladesh and in Kyrgyzstan. In Kyrgyzstan, it's a larger implementation just because the project started earlier, but we have four grades, reading and mathematics, and they use 2 separate apps for either one of those. And Bangladesh, for now, we have only 1 grade, both math and language. With the development that we did for Bangladesh, we also introduced the Bangla language to the interface. And I realize this screenshot is incorrect, but the Bangla script doesn't use the Arabic numerals. They use their own number system. And this is also included in the interface if you switch to Bangla. What's interesting here, the implementation includes a feedback that comes per student and per subtask. So what we see on the first screenshot, I didn't create those very well, but we see that there are 3 students. One got 100% on their test, one got, and the other 2 got 80. You can also see their score. So it's 5 out of 5, 4 out of 5 are correct. And when you tap, oh, and their status is good. We have 5 different status options here. And each one of these statuses links to a feedback. When you tap on a particular student, the feedback also updates and it advises the teacher how they can bring that student to the next level. This obviously is most of the work for Tangerine Teach, just coming up with this feedback and with these messages for the teacher on how they can improve their classroom or their students. Tangerine Learn, this is our latest flavor. It's meant for self-evaluation. You will all have access to the inputs that are used. We are using what's called now a Tangi radio blocks. We can structure the radio blocks like this in a row setup, or we can structure them in a column setup. The interface background and these help questions here are all custom coded. But if you have a use case, I think we'll be happy to guide you through on how to do that. We are currently using this in 2 different projects. One is self-evaluation of reading, and I think math as well. And the other one we use, we call it EGRA for deaf, where we evaluate deaf children. The idea here is that they look at the recording and the recording of the sign language or the prompt for the question. And in this example, in the middle, the bottom row, the middle example, we ask them to click the blue color and we sign blue. So then they click it, or they click don't know, which is the last icon. Other questions, so I think this is receptive vocabulary subtask. The expressive vocabulary subtask, although it has my face here on it, is where we ask them to sign. So the student will look at, this is basically the question. The question is sign the color that you see or the picture that you see. They click the record button, they begin signing, and then they click the stop button. Once the recording has been completed, they can review it and re-record themselves if they are not happy with the outcome. When this is done, obviously they go next. On top here, you see implementation of different tasks. So this is letter identification. We have a passage reading with a follow-up question. Well, this is not a follow-up question for that passage, but they read line by line. They click the arrow pointing downwards to go to the next line. Then they answer some questions about this passage. You can also see we can use the same input for number knowledge, where we voice out. Oh, I didn't mention this. Here, when they start the page, they hear the voice prompt, and also they can repeat the voice prompt or the specific question that they're asked. In this case, if I click the little tangerine icon, it will tell me 5. So I have to type the number 5 and go next. Over here in the missing number subtask, when the student types from the keyboard on top, their number will disappear where we have provided the space. And this last one that we see is the number comparison subtask. Over here, I show you how the input translates from the back end of Tangerine, from the interface to the front-end tablet user. So this is the missing number or a missing number subtask. And we see for keyboard in this new input that's called keyboard input, we give it the keys on the top line. So keys can be numbers from 0 to 9, or it can be letters that the child can press then to type in a word or to type in a number. Then we have a prefix. In this case, the prefix is 1, 2, and the opening bracket. The postfix is the closing bracket and the 4, which means that the input that they type in will be in between the prefix and the postfix. What's interesting about the radio blocks input, which is this one here, is that you can select a column or a row output of it. And I do realize I've inserted both row setup, but over here on the previous slide, we had a column output. And you will see there is a video recording input available for you now. This is, you can use it if you are a subscriber. Free subscribers, we will not enable for you, unfortunately, just in concerns of space and saving of space on the servers. Just keep in mind that if you want to use the video recording, even if you are a paid subscriber, you still have to ask that we activate it for your group. By default, you will see this input and there is a big warning there instructing you to seek support if you want to enable it. What's something you need to consider here is that we have also modified the sync of the app. So whenever you press sync, you will see that there is another option underneath that is for file uploads. If you are not using a video, you can just ignore that. If you do have video files recorded, you will also see them being uploaded one by one to the server. The files are removed from the tablet once they have been uploaded. We worked on two different parts for integration. One of them is integration with Moodle, and Tony here can speak much more about this because he's very involved in the project. But the idea is that we provide a Moodle course website to the teachers. They can then use this course site to improve their teaching. And we also give them access to the feedback after we have done an observation in the classroom. What we see over here is a screenshot from Moodle. I've registered with my 2 fake users, and I see that when I went to do an observation for this teacher, I typed in this comment in my feedback that teacher aspirant performed well and shows improvement. And this is exactly what this teacher sees when they go to their Moodle course site and they go to the, I think we call it practicum in this case. And the second example, just say hello from Tangerine. The idea here is just to let you know that if you do have an integration use case, we are also working on those internally, and perhaps we can find a solution for you. Another one, which I'm sure most people will be excited about, is that we have completed an integration with Power BI. This is a live connection to the Tangerine database. Unfortunately, or I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, we are only going to offer this to subscribers that have access to the user one account. Why is that? Because we have not sorted out the permissions yet on how to allow access just to a certain form or to a certain group. So if you hold the user one account, we can give you also access and help you in setting up a Power BI report for your forms. Improved security. We worked on different aspects of security. One of them is that there is a password policy now, both for the backend users and for the tablet users, for the device users. On the backend, you can still, as an admin user, you can create accounts without password policy. But when the user tries to update this account, they will receive a message like this, that their password needs to be at least 8 characters long, and it needs to contain at least 1 capital letter and 1 symbol. The same is true for the tablet. With a side note that on the tablet, you are given the option to configure it yourself, how you want this to happen. This is a sample configuration. You will find this Oh, did I disconnect? Tony, did I lose connection? I just got a message.
No, no, no. You're okay. You're good
No?
to go.
Okay.
It was me that disconnected.
Okay. Thanks. So what you see here, and you will find this option under Configure Password Policy for Device Accounts. You will find out that the default option now when you create a group is to require a strong password on the tablet. You may find that this is too overwhelming in certain contexts, so you can still change back to the previous default option, which is password required but no password policy. This is what we have had so far, excuse me, in Tangerine. And there is a new option, which is no password at all. I would only ask you to use the no password option if there is only anonymous data being collected. I know in some situations no password is preferred, in other it is a big no-no. Other improvements in terms of security, and this is accessible only to the user one account, so if you don't have access to the user one account, perhaps you're not aware of that, but the main admin user can access rows on per group basis, and you can also modify the permissions for those rows. The default rows that we have are admin and member. Admin can do anything in this group, and member users can access the data download and the form printout. You are now given the option to also create your own row. Maybe you want a row that can only download the data but cannot see the forms, or can download the data but cannot access the location list. You can create a new row and take the permissions that you would like it to have. Like over here, I'm going to create a row that's called form editor, and I'm giving it permission to access the deploy screen, to access the forms, to access the location screen, and access the media library, but they have no access to the data. So this person would be only allowed to edit the forms and deploy them. Just reiterating over that, there is another set of permissions which are per user on site level, where you can grant specific users more user one type permissions, which means if you go to the main group listing and click to the users tab, then there is a small icon, which is a shield icon. If you select that, you will see that you can allow different or specific users to create groups or to access your user management interface. This is good to know, especially if you are delegating and you're sick of creating accounts for everyone and creating groups for everyone. It's just a way that you can assign those master roles to someone else. Improved data export. This is our next feature and perhaps the most exciting one from this release. We have completely changed the interface for downloading files, and hopefully you will all appreciate that it adds, it gives us more with less clicks. So instead of downloading the forms one by one, we can now create a spreadsheet request, and the spreadsheet request can include all of your forms or multiple forms that you can select and then create the spreadsheet. Sorry, create the request. Keep in mind that the request is asynchronous, so you don't have to stay on the screen. Once you create the request, if you have a group with a lot of data, it can take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on what the data size is. So you can continue on with your work, and then later when you come back to spreadsheet requests, you will see a historical listing like what I see here on the second screenshot. I created a spreadsheet request, then I went about my business, I finished some other task, and then I came back and I can download my data. The historical list we're going to keep for a month, because depending on group size and number of records, the historical CSV files or zip files can get very large. Here, if you don't want to if I click the download button or download all button, it will give me a zip file containing all of the CSVs that I have, all of the forms that I have previously selected. And if you want to download just a specific form, you can tap the more info option, and this will allow you to download only one form at a time. I'm just looking at the question. Every time we have to select month, any option to select month for once, date. The dates filter, you can leave it without selecting anything. It will download all of the data. Otherwise, you do have to select, you still have to select a date and a month if you want a specific date, a month and a year if you want a specific year. That is still there. Improved metadata export. You already know the metadata export option, which is accessible from the author tab. We have added another feature to that. So while you are inside the metadata listing, you will see that there is a button that's called Export Data Definitions. This creates an Excel file, and in this Excel file, you will find 4 different tabs. In the first tab is all the information about all of your questions with their options and other settings. On the second tab, which is the metadata tab, you'll just find the form name and the ID. The third one called form, oh, I have them over here. Form hooks, it will show you form level logic that you have, and the section hooks will show you logic that you have on per section basis. So this export you may find a little bit more helpful because it contains additional information and also much easier to copy paste if you are transferring the metadata somewhere else. Tablet improvements. Oh, this is actually, so 2 big features to highlight the multiple file download and the improvements on the tablet. I think those are equally important. First, on the tablet, we have introduced a few more languages, and this is thanks to your contributions. We have received contributions, I think, from 2 or 3 organizations and from separate individuals as well. Others were added internally from RTI, and I realized I made a mistake here. There are actually 15 languages coming up. What's not included in this list is Vietnamese. Again, these are languages of the interface. They are not languages of the actual forms. So if you select a different language, suddenly the next button, the back button, the check for updates, everything that's on the tablet will be changed to this language. Just as a reminder, we can set a default language on group level. Unfortunately, you cannot do this from the interface, but if you have a use case, pop us a message and we'll be happy to update the default group language for the default app language for your group. What else is new? We have consent confirmation input. You will see that there is a new setting if you edit or add a new consent input to your form, and it says confirm when no. What does this mean? If I tap on no, a pop-up will come up and ask me, are you sure you want to, basically confirm that there is no consent? If you click cancel, you stay on the form, nothing will happen. If you click OK, just like before, you go to the end of the form and the response will be submitted. There is another feature that may be useful, and I've seen this on a different application. I'm not sure if it was on Kobo or on Service CTO, where we offer now an option. Again, you cannot configure it yourself. You would have to request activation for, and it's per group. But we have an option to force you to stay on the form until you submit it. This can be very useful, especially if your data assessor is not, or you expect data assessor with lower technical knowledge. What does this do is you cannot mouse away from the form. Even if you close the tablet and you restart it, when you come back to Tangerine, you will be brought on the same form that you were, and until you fill it in and submit it, you cannot start a new form response. It's a little bit restrictive, I think, for my taste, but I know my colleagues and you perhaps have a use case for that. We also have another feature. There is no screenshot for it. Again, it can be configured on per group basis, where we can redirect the user to the form listing. A lot of people complain that they have no use case for the response review screen, which is the last screen after you submit a response. So we've listened to you, and we have included a configuration to forward you to the form listing screen where you can start a new response upon submission. Oh, and I almost missed this one. This is interesting and a very big improvement, I think. But partial uploads are finally fixed. Partial uploads are those that you have started, but you have not submitted. So you can still find them in the Visits tab, but by default, before they were not being uploaded, and they're still not uploaded by default. But if we configure partial uploads, you will get all of them. And if a form was already synchronized and then submitted later, it is this last version of the form that will end up in your CSV files. So I think that's a big improvement, and it will contribute towards more complete data. More improvements on the tablet, on the Visits tab. Two big ones, I think. The first one is that, oh, and my cat is very interested in joining me. The first one is that we are now including all forms without location to the Visits tab. So if you're not using the location list or a particular form, it doesn't make sense to include a location list. You can still review those or resume those forms by accessing the Visit tab. In this case, you can see it's the last option that says no location. This means that if I click that option, all forms without a location will be available for me there to resume or to review previous answers. The other big thing on the Visits tab is that now we have a completed flag. So this makes it very easy for the data assessor to spot if they have started a form but they have not completed it. In this case, I cannot quite focus. It's too small, but oh, I see. So the first three, it says true, and the last one says false. This means that the last form was not submitted. When I tap beside the form title, I can go back to this form and complete it if I want to. And something I missed in the Tangerine Learn introduction, but there is a new kiosk mode available. This kiosk mode removes the top bar, the Tangerine bar. Think of that if you are doing self-evaluation or executive function tests. It's better to exclude external distraction for the kids. Again, the kiosk mode option is available upon configuration. Some fixes. I'm sure these are not all the fixes that you have requested, but some of those, the ones that we thought are the most important or the ones that we had most requests for, we have fixed. Some of you may have noticed that tablet users were able to create an empty username, so they were able to log in without a username basically and perform a data collection without filling in a username and filling in a user profile, which later made it very difficult to determine who collected that data. This is now fixed. No one can register in the tablet without providing a username. Cycle sequences, for those of you who use it, those are the sequences we can define on form to execute certain sections in a different order. Think here, EGMA first, EGRA first scenarios, whichever one you want first, you can program this in a cycle sequence. This functionality was already available to you, but the cycle sequence was not actually included in the CSV export file. This is now resolved, and instead of looking for start times for the different sections, you can easily spot which sections were first, which second for a particular response in your CSV file. And the last fix that we did was to finally allow for grids to be controlled with skip logic. What does this mean for you? It means that you can have more than one grid on the same page, on the same section, and control those, hide and show them based on skip logic, just like with any other item with Tangerine. And this was my last slide. I'm going now to you for some questions. I know I saw an extra question. I think Tony answered this one already, but I'll pause here, let you reflect for a moment and ask you to raise a hand if you have a question. While we are waiting, if there are any questions, I just want to mention this this update. All updates will be performed in the last week of August. It has no effect on your current data collection. So if you are in an active data collection, there is nothing to worry about. If you have a concern that you cannot transfer the knowledge of these changes throughout your organization and you would like to delay the upgrade, please let me know. We can do that. We can work with you on choosing the correct time. I don't think there is anything that would be a stopper to be adopted quicker by the rest of the organization. But just keep it in mind, we are flexible, but we'll take more of a proactive approach instead of waiting for you to confirm that you want an update. So please message me if you do not want this update on your site, or at least not at this moment. I think no other questions have come up. I have
two
two more
questions,
questions.
Latko.
Yeah, so the first one, I see them, Tony, thanks. So the Power BI integration, there is no dashboard per se that we're going to share with you, but we can help you in configuring a connection so that you can, a connection for a particular form, for a particular group, so that you can build your own reports using Power BI. Again, this is only available for admin user one accounts. If you are using the free version, you will not have access to this. And if you are using a paid subscription, but maybe you're authorized only to see this one group, most likely we would have to talk about it, but most likely you will not be able to make use of this functionality. The other one, does the Tangerine Learn also allow 2000? Yeah, the subscription model remains the same. You will have inputs to the Tangerine Learn question types. You can do your own implementations of it. There is no extra cost to it. There will be extra cost if you want to use our customized interface with the audio prompts and the different next buttons and all of that. Anything else? Just giving everyone a few more minutes.
Lachko, I was just okay. We have another question. How can the Moodle course be accessed? Is it included in the paid subscription?
No, the Moodle course is free. You can access it whenever you want. The one thing here that we're still thinking about is that the Moodle website requires user registration. The user registration is not open to the public, but if you want to access those courses, please send me an email. I'll create a user for you and I will assign you to those courses. Both of the courses are free. And we are planning to add on to that, add a specialized course on doing EGRA, add a specialized course on doing EGMA, one for observations and perhaps for other use cases. But the idea is that all of these courses will be free and accessible for everyone.
There's another question that is asking by Humphreys Kabota. It says, would you confirm that the changes made right now would not affect the data already collected? and that the data to be collected now prior to the changes on the tool would also not be affected.
That's correct, Humphrey. There is no change in the data, current data being collected or new data coming in after the update. Everything remains the same. You don't have to push an APK update if you don't want to. That's not a requirement. You can update your app whenever you have a new form or create a new group. All data stays all data is not impacted, and current data collection is not affected in any way.
Then Jenny also has a question. She's asking, so the Tangerine Learn will be available end of August if we want to look into it?
That's correct, Jenny. Yeah, Tangerine Learn. Well, Tangerine Learn is really an implementation of these two question types that we saw earlier, the input keyboard and the radio blocks. Those will be available to you, but just on a white screen without the custom colors.
I do have a question of my own, Lachko, if you permit.
Please go ahead, Tony, of course.
Thank you, Jenny. The question is for the question around the dashboard. For those that are interested in it, would there be a guide, a step-by-step guide or template, maybe on the Moodle course that they can use to like find their way towards a pathway of using the Power BI integration?
That's an interesting suggestion. The problem with the dashboards is that everyone is using different variable names and different questions. Basically, even if we are all doing EGRA, Eggman observations, for one organization names the items in one way, another organization in a different way, and I know there is somewhere there is a rule set, at least for the EGRA tasks, but I've rarely seen that being followed across organizations. That's why sharing a dashboard doesn't really make sense, because the data will not map in the same way. I think we can definitely share a dashboard to a sample data set somewhere so that you can see how it was done, but you would have to recreate this for your own context.
Just to write on that, is it possible to, like in some other contexts we've seen where we set up like a demo form, and then use that demo form to set up a tutorial on how to connect to the Power BI integration with the same field name and variable name, and that way people can just use that, especially for those that are willing to try it out to see how it works, and then also maybe learn from it.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I think we can definitely do that.
Okay. All right, guys, are there any more questions, suggestions, hints, updates, interesting ways where you've used Tangerine that we've not learned about that you're willing to share with us? You can also drop that also in the Q&A, or send myself and Lachko an email. We're also thinking about making like I did chat Lachko, the Tangerine Moodle course, we can make it open on the Moodle site. We will work on that and make it open to guests. So you necessarily might not need a username and password. You can actually just go there as a guest. All it might require would be for you to just provide us maybe a couple of your name, your email, and maybe a couple of questions on what you use Tangerine for, and then you can access. Okay, there's a question. In Jharkhand, we use Tangerine in 5 tribal language. Wow, Shubra, that's interesting.
Yeah.
5 tribal languages. Can you list the languages?
I think the more language diverse I've seen internally is perhaps Kyrgyzstan. Well, and just as a reminder, I will share the presentation with you and a link to the recording. One of the 2 recordings will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, so it will be accessible for everyone as a reference. If anything else comes up in the coming days or before the update happens, please open a support request or message me directly, and I'll be happy to get back to you. Thanks everyone. Thanks, Tony. I hope we get some positive feedback from this after this upgrade.
Thank you, Lachko. Thank you, everyone. And we look forward to the next section. I think that is that's next week. Am I correct?
It's tomorrow. It's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow. Okay. Tomorrow's session is also going to be up. And I think that's going to be a bit early, about 8 a.m. GMT. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's 10 a.m. for me. Yeah, +2. Yeah, 8 a.m.
Yeah. Okay. So we look forward to additional people joining. If you wish to also have another rerun on this, you could also join that. Maybe you've had some initial thought or questions, or you've reviewed it and you want to ask additional questions, or you have some great ideas you would like to share with us, please join us tomorrow. I think we'll also be sharing the link. If you don't have that already for tomorrow's session, you can join us, and maybe we can also make this a bit more interesting. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.